Well, hello, here we are again, back with the boys from the bush. They were actually from the bush. That's where the company started, in Shepherd's Bush in London, and hence the name, although I think by the time this thing was made they were located in Boreham Wood, because they were part of the J. Arthur Rank organisation. No smutty jokes, please. This is a Bush Merlin, or to give it its model number, the VTR 172, and this was produced, according to Radio Museum, around 1970. You can tell it's that sort of era because of the BBC stations having numbers of 2, 3 and 4 here, not home, third and light, as previously they've had, and of course we've got Radio 1 here. It's a 3-band radio, batteries only, split tuning scales, which you've seen on a number of sets before, which gives you a bit more space to put legends in at the expense of a slightly compressed scale. Only goes up to 100 megahertz, or maybe 101 if you're lucky, I'm not sure. See how far that goes. Yeah, 101 megahertz just about on VHF. Interesting feature here is having the names of the first batch of BBC local radio stations on the VHF part of the dial. The only other radio I've ever seen have that is the Hacker VHF Herald, which is one of my favourite sets, and I use it quite a lot, but that's the only other one I've seen with these stations on. When we covered that set, I did go in a bit into the history of these things, but you might be thinking, what's the thinking here, this first batch of radio stations, because it doesn't seem a particularly logical selection of towns and cities, but because the BBC wasn't given any extra money to launch local radio, so they went around trying to get support for their stations. So, you know, they'd go around to local councillors and say, you know, would you like to have a Radio Saffron Walden or whatever? And the ones who were prepared to put their hands in their pockets, or more accurately their hands in their ratepayers' pockets, were the ones that got radio stations, hence this selection. Looking at the top of it, it's also got log scales for both of these, so you can, you know, if you're not sure exactly how to read the frequency off, you can say, oh, I listen to radio 27.5 or whatever. You've got the usual waveband selectors. You've got an off button which turns the whole thing off, and then you've got long wave, medium wave and VHF, but notice you've also got this 247. Now that's a feature that was also on another Bush radio we looked at, the TR230 I think. That had a dedicated 247 button for Radio 1, which is what this is for, because that's what Radio 1 was on at that time. Now, when I reviewed the 230, I think that still worked, because we had Absolute Radio still using the old 247 1215 kilohertz frequency. But that went off a few years ago. Absolute Radio shut it down because of running costs of the transmitter and declining AM audience, so that now won't do anything useful. It just gets you static, but it's static very well tuned to 1215 kilohertz, you have to admit. Telescopic aerial's still intact, which is good. The controls don't seem to be intact. Well, they are, they work, they move around, and the tuning pointers move as we saw earlier, so that's good. But these controls presumably had some sort of chrome toppings on them or whatever, which have come off and lost, so we might be able to do something about that. Overall, it's in quite good nick. It's a nice varnished wood case, and it's proper wood, it's not just fake wood effect on it. We've got a headphone socket here and a external aerial socket, which I presume is only for the VHF, although it could be for both, I'm not sure. There you've got the proper model number there, VTR 172, and the fact that it is now a member of the Rank organisation. Access to change the batteries is one of these little captive half-turn or quarter-turn screws here, so if we take that out, we should be able to just pull this bottom cover off. Let's pull it with that. There we go. Rather reminiscent in this construction, I think, of some later Robertson Hacker radios. PP9 battery is required here. Now here's a bit of a sidebar. This here is my last PP9, and I mean my last one, because they seem to have discontinued them at the end of last year, 2024, and I just can't find any new ones anywhere now. It looks like they're absolutely out of production forever. Now, lots of the radios we look at on this channel use PP9s. It's very much the classic battery of the late 60s to 70s, and even some Roberts replica sets made in the 90s use PP9s. A lot of the Hacker ones, of course, use two of them, because they had 18 volt supplies. So it is indeed a legendary battery. In fact, another legend about it is it was frequently used apparently by prisoners, because prisoners are allowed to have radios, and a lot of these radios were powered by PP9s, and they used to put the PP9 in a sock and use it as a weapon to assault other inmates. Quite nasty, really. I suppose you call it assault and battery. Thank you, I'm here all week. So we had the verb to PP9 people in the underworld. I must admit I've been a bit tempted to PP9 a few Roberts radios that I tried to repair, but I've usually resisted the temptation. How do we stop these radios getting a whole life sentence? I mean, this PP9 actually doesn't work now. Well, it sort of does. You can measure 9 volts across it, but if you take any current from it, it drops very quickly to about 7 volts and the radio stops working. So what's the future of powering these radios? Well, we've gone through this before. My normal approach of these has been to convert them to using PP3s. PP3s don't have quite as much capacity and won't last as long as a PP9 would. But then again, most of the PP9s I've had in the last year or so of their manufacture were absolute pants and wouldn't last more than about a week or so anyway. So I was just wasting £5 a time or whatever on batteries at that point. And I've decided in majority of cases I'll just convert them to PP3s. Another way to do it is you can get these holders here which take 6 AA cells, and they then have a little PP3 connector on it which you can use to plug into the radio. Obviously you'd have to do something with these things. I have a little connector here which is wired for this sort of thing, or for a normal PP3, which goes to, and this is rescued from an old probably Hacker radio or something like that. So you can just wire that up, and that's all right for testing, but it doesn't work very well if you have it in there permanently. You've got to do something to secure this in place, stop it flapping about, shorting out. And also these things tend to have all these extra contacts on here, which is a bit of an annoyance really. In that case you need to tape them over or somehow cover them up, stop them shorting out on things, and you'd have to deal with these things shorting out as well. So it's all a bit of a mess really if you want to do it permanently, which is why I would probably, and I might well do with this one, just replace the whole wiring loom, going back to the main board with PP3 connectors. By the way, if you decide to make one of these, when you take this out of an old radio, what you have to remember to do is to get it the right way round, because when you take it out of the radio, that one will have red on it and that one will have black on it, but you need this one to have red on it because it's actually pretended to be a battery, not the battery connector. Anyway, that's enough of the Arnold Rimmer history of batteries. Let's get this plugged in and see what it's like. Pretty loud really. I'd have to come much off the end stop to get that. This is on medium wave at the moment, so let's see. We can normally only get 2 stations on medium wave around here. Let's try what we can do.
Never mind next year's allowance. You don't know what's going to happen next year, and just in case you might have the need for it next year, you may as well use up this year's allowance if it's right for you while you've got it, because in case you're going to need the one next year.
To be clear, the allowance is on the principal sum you can put in,
correct,
but not on the amount of interest.
So that's BBC 5 Live. We should also be able to get Talk Sport.
I've seen little things in his fight. He's been hurt, he's been dropped in fights of lesser fighters than me, and everyone he fights, to get in there and they respect him so much, to go on the back foot straight away. I'm not that type of fighter. I'll get in there and push him back. I'll 100% be stronger than him, fitter than him. So
quite a big sound really. Really nice sound it gets on medium wave there. Let's try it on long wave, see if we can get anything there. Should just be able to get labelled as radio 2 but now radio 4 for the moment until it closes down.
Children for holidays, so we were travelling in August, but actually actually just the magic of going into Venice was as much something we enjoyed as being in Venice itself for a short time.
And VHF, so let's get the aerial up. That's radio 3, it's quite a strong signal there. And that's 2 radio 3, so both those signals are strong. The one higher up is the Peterborough transmitter, and then this one's a Madingley transmitter. The pointer is out of alignment somehow, because I think it may have been out of alignment on medium wave, although I didn't really look. But that pointer's out of alignment. That should be around 91 now, and it's showing 92. And the one that the Peterborough transmitter is 92.3. And that's showing just around sort of more than 93 really, so we might need to fiddle with the FM alignment and do a professional alignment process on the FM circuit.
Someone that isn't claiming benefits but contributing to society, you're never going to own a new car in your life, let alone a BMW or a Mercedes, as is provided under the scheme at the moment. And when you
have the time or the will to be going and doing all of this research and booking themselves, who quite appreciate having us there on WhatsApp while they're
Radio 4.
Kind of sorting all the admin in the house.
You get labelled for doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, you were so into the technicals. You were called what was your nickname? Dr. Technical.
Oh, Dr. Technical. Oh, yeah, I know. It was why was I called Dr. Technical? Well, I suppose really because I had a lot of electronic gear at the time. And, I mean, the innovation come when you could actually MIDI your guitar up and actually play keyboards through the guitar. And, I mean, wonderful moments. I mean, as technology advances, I mean, it is quite fun. You can play synthesizer and you can...
Yeah, very good, as long as you don't need a PP9 to power it, because it's stuffed otherwise. So, Radio 1, I think... What is that? It could be Heart, actually. No, that's Radio 1.
Radio.
And what used to be Star Radio but is now Hits Radio Cambridgeshire. So you can see pretty reasonable selection of stations, all with quite good quality on VHF. So I think the only thing we probably need to do with this is to look at the alignment and get this back into the right places. Maybe give some of these switches and pots a clean, although they don't sound too bad. And convert the battery connector, and after that I think it's almost in perfect condition really. Right, looking at the manual, it says to take these 2 screws out and the back comes off, so let's try that. Yeah, not bad. These are a bit loose, but maybe they're supposed to be a bit loose actually, so it's got some play. They both appear to be. So that wooden back comes out and you can see the whole lot. Now this is much better than the Roberts sort of thing where you have to pull the whole thing out from the top because it's completely one piece cabinet, or later Hacker radios, Hacker Sound, I think ones which were not as good as the original Hackers and not as high quality anyway, had that arrangement as well. But this is quite good. You take the back off and you can just see everything, or pretty much everything. Not bad construction at all really. You've got an FM tuner here, which I believe, looking at the manual, is supposed to be a replacement item, as in if there's any problems with it you're not supposed to take it apart, but you're just supposed to take it out, send it back to them Bush boys and they send you another one. Obviously that's not going to work nowadays, but there it is. You can't get at the adjustment things from here, so if you want to align it, those things are down the side there, which means you've got to take the whole thing out. You can, however, clean the pots and the switches without doing any more dismantling, so that's good. and it looks like you could align the whole AM section without more dismantling. Those two sort of plates or extensions go into these rubber grommets here at the top, and they feel a bit past their best, really. I wonder if we can replace those. I think we probably should. Whether or not we bother replacing other rubber grommets, like I noticed ones holding the tuning capacitor assembly, they seem to have gone a bit hard, but I don't really want to start pulling all this out if I don't have to, especially as it's working. We're fairly good at converting working things into non-working things on this channel, and I'd like, if possible, to get a reputation for being able to fix things occasionally. Transistors are almost all silicon NPN, so quite modern really for that time. None of those AF series transistors that grow whiskers have stopped working. There are a couple of germanium transistors for the power output, which again is not unusual for the time. Germanium persisted in the power output of radios for a lot longer than it did in the rest of it. Now, there are a couple of other things I note from looking at the manual, which is that in order to adjust the VHF tuning, it looks like it's a permeability type tuner with an inductive tuning thing, and in order to adjust it you have to muck around with this disc here, which I think you can't see on this. There's the disc, but the screw that you have to adjust it with is on the other side, so we are going to have to take the whole chassis out to fix that FM alignment problem. And it's the thing that has a dial cord around it as well. You have to loosen this, or is that the dial cord? Or maybe it's just a cord that moves that thing. I hope it doesn't mean that, we've got to muck about with the dial cord to get the FM alignment right. If that's the case, I might just leave it alone, because I don't want to get into the seventh circle of dial cord hell. I do also notice from this the radio spares service notes on cleaning fluid. Engineers are not generally particularly concerned about cleaning electrical parts unless a real necessity arises. Really? Then they will probably use the first likely looking fluid available, sometimes with disastrous results. Don't know what they're on about, to be honest. Let's do some cleaning. Okay, for the avoidance of doubt and a talking to from the health and safety people, I must point out that you're supposed to drink the beer and clean the pots with isopropyl alcohol, not clean the pots of beer and drink the isopropyl alcohol. You might feel that maybe I've done that, some of the stuff I ramble on about, but I shall certainly be sending a telex to Radio Spares to order some of this excellent cleaning fluid. Right, it turned out to be an absolute nightmare getting this thing out, really. So it did say take 3 screws out, and these are 2 of them. I ended up taking that nut off the top of the speaker as well, which I could just about reach. But I don't think I needed to do that. But the main thing is, you have to get the lip of this tuning scale to get over the edge of that front cover there. And that's the thing that seems to hold it all in. It says lift the back slightly and ease it out, but it's not really like that. It's a very tricky operation, and I'm absolutely petrified of breaking the whole thing, but I seem to have got it out as a chassis now, so now I can probably put the wires back. I think the first thing we'll do though is take out, this looks pretty straightforward for the power, it's just these 2 leads here, so I'll take those out and replace them with a PP3 connector with some extended wires. Right, I'll replace these grommets here because the old ones have gone hard and weren't generally very good. Unfortunately, it has been an absolute nightmare to do that because you can't really get this panel off. So you can see here there are screws going through this panel from the front, but they're from the front behind the faceplate, and you can't get the faceplate off. I mean, it's a little, I managed to bend it a little bit here, and I didn't want to go any further because it's been really heavily glued on, and I don't want to damage it, so I'll squash that back into place so that it's neat again. So there's no chance of getting that off. So what you have to do is chisel the old hard grommets out and then find a way of getting the bits of the remaining bits out from underneath, which I've done, and put the new grommets in. Why did they put the screws like that? Why didn't they put the screws on this side? It's such a stupid piece of design, that. Anyway, so I replaced these things. I've had to give the back panel a bit of a better location when it goes back in. So next thing to do, I think, is have a look at this FM alignment. There's the drum of the tuning mechanism, and you can see the tuning, the dial cord is actually on there. But on the other side of it is a cord which pulls in and out the core to change the inductance on this tuner, and that is controlled by the position of this screw here. So I've wired it all up so it should come to life if I put it on FM. I'm just going to wait until we get some speech so that we don't get hit by copyright issues. So normally I'd use, I'll just turn that down for a moment, it's getting really quite irritating, that noise. Normally I'd use Radio Cambridge to set this because that's bang on 96 megahertz and is marked on the dial nicely, and that's sort of midpoint. Unfortunately, because of the way this screw is located, if you put it on 96, it goes under this tuning scale, so I'd have to try and remove the tuning scale in order to be able to get at the screw, and then of course you can't see where you are anyway, so it doesn't work. So the only answer seems to be to set it on 100 megahertz, which brings this screw into view. So we've got 100 megahertz at the moment on here, so I haven't turned it on yet, so let's turn the volume up again. And well, so I haven't got an aerial on this at the moment, so if I turn the output on, so you can see it's a little bit off, it's not dead on the 100, so what I'm going to do is bring it back down a bit. So I need to loosen this screw. So if I retune down here to 100 and move this, and it is a bit fiddly. I'd say about there is right. So now I'm just going to off that again. I'm going to tighten that up and hopefully not move it around in the process of tightening it up, because I don't think you've got a lot of leeway in this adjustment before it goes completely off. So I've retightened it. Let's put it back on. Yeah, that's pretty solid. So let's turn that off, remove the signal generator for the moment, and I'm going to go back down now to 96, which we can usually receive without an aerial. As you can see, that's not quite on 96, so that's a little bit off. So what I'm going to do now is go back to 100. Maybe just set that on, say, the 1 of the 100. Or maybe between the 1 and the 0 of 100. That might just improve things a little on the middle of the scale. Tighten that up again. I'm going to go back to 96.
BBC Radio Cambridge here. 3 o'clock, BBC News for Cambridge now with Matthew Gudgeon. Interest rates have been left unchanged at 4.5%. The Bank of England...
So that's good. 96 is pretty solid there. Let's go down to... let's see if we can find radio. It's going to be difficult to find other channels, so what I'm going to do is put it on 94 and reset this signal generator. You can't see it at the moment. That's pretty good. Let's go all the way to the bottom. That's 88. You can't see it because I haven't. Let's move the camera back a bit. That's 88.
Bearing and everything. The Fenland F1 star George Russell's amongst those paying tribute to team boss and commentator Eddie Jordan. One of the most charismatic figures of motor racing has died at the age of 76.
So yeah, so it's pretty well lined up now on VHF FM. We might want to have a look at the AM lineup, but to be honest, I mean, I didn't touch any of the IF stuff on this tuner here. I could have done that, but I don't. From what I could hear, it sounded fine, so I wasn't going to mess about with that. There's no reason to, because it doesn't sound to be off. What was off was the actual oscillator tuning. So the AM side we should be able to do with the thing back in the chassis. So I'm going to put it back in the chassis, which I suspect might be another struggle, and wire it all up again. So I'll see you when I've got it back together. Well, it was really nice of them to provide this little wooden platform here as a place where I could put the PP3 holder, so that's quite good. That fits almost perfectly there. I've screwed that in there and wired it up, and the only thing was there was a serial number on that bit of wood there, so I've just relocated the serial number label to down there so we don't lose it for those people who care about what your serial number is. I did have a quick look at the aim alignment. It wasn't far out, but I corrected it. Also, there's this little board here which has a transformer and a capacitor for setting the 247 frequency. I checked that and it was fine. I did wonder if it was possible to adjust these to get that onto an actual station, so maybe I could move it from 247 to 275 for Talk Sport, but there's not enough tweak in that to get that, so it stays as a monument to wonderful Radio 1. So I think that's it, Pop Pickers. We'll put it back together and have a listen to it.
Now, the thought to have entered UK waters when the Solong cargo ship struck the Stena Immaculate oil tanker off the coast of East Yorkshire last week. A retrieval operation's been underway between Old Hunstanton and Wells Next to Sea in Norfolk.
People from an early age to let them know how to deal with anger. Somebody upset you.
That question. I'm delighted to say we have Emma Brennan from ABTA, the Trade Association for Travel Agents and Tour Operators. First of all, must be a busy old day on the lines.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a huge day.
Gangster's Paradise. That's my karaoke song. Still got to learn that, get round to that. The lads were fantastic, weren't they? Thoroughly enjoyed all of that chat. Hello to my crewmate Jane. We are working hard.
There's only so much of Sarah Cox that I can take, but I think you can hear. It's pretty good quality radio, really. It's a really nice sound, and we've got it back into a reasonable condition. We've got a sustainable battery supply now. I've put some little metal discs on top of these things to improve it a bit. Not the best, but it looks better than it did. We've got it all lined up, and the case was looking good to start with. Didn't really need much in the way of cleanup at all. So overall, I think this is one of the best radios that I've looked at on this channel. The only problem is, of course, as with all these radios at the time, is the restricted top-end frequency coverage on FM. So 3 stations in this area you can't get, being Classic FM, Heart Cambridgeshire and Greatest Hits Radio, which is a shame because on all the other stations it sounds brilliant. Hope you found that interesting. We'll see you on the next one.